Hi everybody, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you. This is the Russian line, the premium Tier VIII IS-6 heavy tank. And as always, we have a complete guide for you, and we will look at the tech spec using Blitz hanger. But before we go into that, let me be very honest about this tank. I hate this tank. I really hate it. But not for the reason you might think, not because it's a bad tank. Actually, it's quite a good tank. No, it's because when I started playing Blitz, and after, like, say, 50 games, I was told the IS-6 is the best tank you can buy, so I bought it and started playing with it. So as you can imagine, in Tier 8, playing with 50 games, you know what happened. So that's why I dislike this tank. It just has bad memories for me. But it is a good tank, and it is a great premium tank with 180% credit coefficient, and that's why we buy premium tanks, right? Apart from their unusual factor, we buy them so that we can earn credits. And this is one of the best in Tier 8. Not quite as good as the low or the Luva, but it is up there at 180%. Now, the thing about this tank is to note there are two gun types available on it. And gun selection is very important on this tank. This is the lower tank. This is the lower tier gun on the tank, or the lower spec gun, let's say. And you will see here, look at the muzzle velocity in this. It is dreadful for a heavy tank, especially for a Tier 8. Look at the difference on the bigger gun. Why is that important? Why do I always talk about muzzle velocity? Well, let's have a look. This formula is shell penetration. So this is the mathematical formula for shell penetration. We don't have to worry about the whole thing, right? But let's just look at what its components are. And as you see, one of the key components is projectile velocity. That is muzzle velocity. That is the velocity at which the shell travels at. And as you can see, it's squared, so it has an even more important impact than, let's say, projectile mass, which is in either in kilograms or grams, which is m. Muzzle velocity v is squared, and therefore has an exponentially more valuable and more influential influence on whether you penetrate or not. Therefore, muzzle velocity is extremely important. That's why I always go on about it in my videos. Get that muzzle velocity up. Now, there are some World of Tank Blitz snobs who'll say, oh, if you can't play, then that's why you need the bigger gun. No, this is why you need it. It's mathematically proven. So get it. In theory, you have less DPM because you've got a better reload on the lower gun, but it's not going to pen, especially over distance. So get the bigger gun. The gun handling on the IS range is patchy at best, and it is a dog if you use that lower spec gun. So get the bigger spec gun and don't listen to all the idiots, because I've just shown you mathematically why it is essential to have it. Now, get supercharged, get that muzzle velocity up to 1800 meters per second. That is fantastic. Get refined guns so you don't lose penetration over distance. Now, it's a 122 millimeter gun. It has lots of pen. It's going to do lots of damage. You can get up to 500 alpha rolls in this thing, and you'll see one of those in the game we're going to look at. That said, the gun is patchy like all Russian guns. It doesn't handle like a German gun. You're going to get fluffed shots, ghost shells, etc. But you'll have far less if you use the higher spec gun. So just take my word for it. You will need it. Now, the tank is relatively mobile, does 35 kilometers in a straight line. Backwards is 14, so it's pretty mobile for a heavy tank. And it has a great armor profile. If we look at the tank here, you will see that you have red numbers all over. Front on, it can bounce shots. It can bounce shots at the side. It is a side scraping monster. If we look here at some of the angles that you can get, look at those angles. It is a side scraping monster. Look at those angles going up. High 400s, almost there into the 500s on the relative armor thickness. You can side scrape all day long in this tank. So just be aware of that. And also front on, unless you're up against a big gun, you can bounce shots too, and you'll see I bounce shots from all angles in the game that we're going to look at. Another thing to note about this tank is that it has spaced armor on the side. We're going to look at that in a second. But why is spaced armor so important? And by the way, spaced armor is on the whole IS range. It's on the IS-3, it's on the IS-6, the IS-5, it's on the IS-3 Defender, and when you go up to IS-8, IS-4, IS-7. Just a note there, be careful going downhill. As you saw, you've no armor on the top, And if you're up tiered, or if a Borsig or something like that has a shot on you, he can ammo rack you. So just be careful going downhill. You know, armor on the top and your ammo rack is exposed. But going back to the spaced armor here on the side. The spaced armor, firstly, of course, it gives cover to your tracks, which we'll see in a second when I add in the external modules. And that, of course, is extremely important. It means that you have the possibility of running engine accelerator on this if you want, because your tracks do have some protection. I don't, because I hate being perma-tracked. I think it's the worst thing that can happen to you in the game. But going back to the spaced armor, it gives you protection from HE and heat, because it can't go through it, or it gets blocked on the way through and does minimal damage. This is extremely important, and inexperienced players will fire HE or heat at the side of an IS, IS-6, IS-5, whatever, and wonder why it doesn't do damage, or does minimal damage, and that's why it has spaced armor on the side. Now, it says here it's tactics, front line, etc. It is very good at front line. If you have the top tier gun and you have and you're using supercharged and calibrated, and refined gun, then you will be good at long range sniping as well. It is a good brawler because of that armor profile. I mean, as you can see, it's a front on bully, and if you're top tier, forget about it. You can just push on into the enemy. Even in your own tier against other heavies in tier 8, you can face hug, you can brawl, and because the gun is a big gun, it does lots of damage, you can hold your own in brawls. So don't worry about that. It is a tough competitor, and it is difficult to knock out of the game. So especially if you know what you're doing, which of course I didn't when I started playing it, which is why I don't like the tank. But of course I am not so stupid as to say that it is a bad tank. If you look at the price there, 7,400 gold, it's not that expensive, especially compared to some of the things that Wargaming have tried to sell us before. It's working at around 24-25 euros, so not so bad value for money, particularly when you consider that it has a 180% credit coefficient and will earn you credits all day long. When you up tier the gun or use the higher spec gun, you have APC as your standard round, heat as your secondary round, and of course HE. And HE, because of the big gun, 122mm, will go through a lot of mediums and nearly all light tanks. If you see an RU, load up the HE. The reason I'm mentioning about the heat as your secondary, as your premium round, is because if you go up against other ISs and you're on the side of them, don't use it for the reasons that we explained looking at the tech spec. Now back to the game. It's vineyards. So I'm going to go to the town, which I usually do in heavies. I don't like being stuck out in the open on the hills. And I am going to see here if I can get some shots on their meds or their light tanks. Now, I see the Panthers come up, and I get a nice shot into him. And this is the muzzle velocity I was talking to you about in action. 457 alpha roll on him. I took one, but this tank has quite a nice pool of hit points, 1470 in total. So I really didn't mind taking a 200 plus there to put that alpha roll into him. Plus I did a bit of spotting up, and now we can move into the centre of town and get into the real action. Now, you're going to see here how good the tank is at bouncing shots. Now I know this is only a T43, it's a tier 7 light tank, but you can see that you can only fight the tank that's in front of you, and you can see that because I know he's tier 7 medium tank, I just push on up, and I'm not afraid at all of being penned, and I just get that lovely bounce off the right hand side just under my turret there, as you saw. Lovely bounce, allows me to push up, and really 99% of the time this tank will bounce a shot like that from a tier 7 medium. Again, you see there another bounce coming in, didn't even have to side scrape for that bounce, just a free bounce, and that's just how good the armor is in this tank. Pulling back now, trying to create my angles again, and just letting it reload in safety. I'm going to push up, and there's a bounce on the spaced armor there, which is a nice bonus from the side if you saw it. So somebody was sniping across, put a round into me, and I got a nice bounce on it, getting another bounce again on the side. And the spaced armor, that might be the RU, by the way, who's firing HE at me, thinking he's going to pen me, and he's not, because I have that spaced armor. Now I get hit by one. I've been in a bit of a crossfire, but you see how good the armor is there. I bounce another shot, from the T29. And this is what I'm saying about this tank. It is a tough competitor. You know, I was in a crossfire there, front and to the side, and I still came out of it with pretty good health and still able to compete and to put damage into the enemy. And I'm actually able to be clear. I'm actually going to clear this Tiger 2 here now. Some help from my allies. Load it up and then run right into the back of it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, the rest of my team are not particularly good and haven't done a particularly good job, and we are actually on course to lose this game, by the way, I think. But we get a massive piece of luck here because this VK is actually AFK, and I actually came up on him and found him, and we are quite lucky because I think we would. If you look at the scores at the end, I think we're going to lose this game otherwise. So this is good luck for me. Nice luck that I found him. And what I'm going to do is I want to push up onto their tanks in the middle of the map, but I can't leave him behind me. It's a zombie rule. I cannot let him reanimate, come back into the game when he's behind me with that massive gun. He puts 2 rounds at the back of me and it's game over. So I need to take him out. And there is always a debate in Blitz, you know, should you concentrate on the active players or should you take out the AFKs? My view is take out the AFKs while you can, because when I get AFK, if I get disconnected, I always log out and log back in again, and that is makes a big difference. Sometimes I come back into a game with only 2 minutes left to play, but if I come back in and the enemy have pushed on past me and I'm behind them, then I can make the difference. Now, as you can see, if you look at the scores in this game, etc., as we'll see when the game is over, I think that we would have lost this game without that AFK VK. But you can only play the tanks that are in the game, and you can only do what you can do against the tanks you face up against. Now, there is a beautiful alpha roll coming up here from the IS-6. It's max alpha roll 500 here on the Jagdpanther. This is the guy that I pinged earlier on in the game. Now look at that beautiful 500. And again, that's that muzzle velocity in play there. It just smacks straight into him with almost 2,000 meters per second. Bam! Just wrecks him. It's a beautiful alpha roll. Again, you see again another bounce on it, and all these free bounces that you're getting. You know, I'm not even doing anything for them. I'm not like I'm angling up or anything like that. I'm just moving around and I'm just getting bounces left, right, and center. Again, I know it's only a tier 7, but still, you know, bounce is a bounce, and you can only fight the tank you're up against. Here's an example of the poor gun handling you see there. If that was a German gun or whatever, that would have gone straight through. It just hits the rock in front of him there. And now the poor IS, he's got no gun depression, can't get a shot on me, and it's game over. And I think this game was a great illustration of what is great about the IS-6. You know, a nice mastery badge there. I'm not sure if I would have gotten it without the AFK VK. Maybe I would, I'm not sure. But I don't think we would have won that game otherwise, because my team, as you can see there, apart from the AMX, were pretty poor. 2 zeros in a tier 8 game. Very poor performance from those guys. But let's give them a break. They might be inexperienced. They might be like me in the IS-6 when I started. Anyway, you see here, I think that this game was a great illustration of what the IS-6 can do. If you aim carefully, get great alpha rolls, it can bounce shots from you even when you're not trying, even when you're not side scraping or angling up, you're getting bounces. That spaced armor is bouncing HE rounds from you or not letting them pen you, and it's just really, really good, solid competitor. But it does have that patchy gun handling, so just bear that in mind. I think it's a kind of classic Russian heavy tank, very typical of the IS range as well. I think it handles very much like all of the IS range. If you've played one, you've kind of played them all. Has great armor. The front armor is excellent, as you saw there. You can move with confidence, especially against smaller guns, and just know you're going to bounce. Side scraping and angling, you can get amazing relative armor numbers, as we saw in the tech spec. You know, up to 500 relative armor thickness on the sides, just fantastic. Big 122mm gun, but it does have patchy handling. You've got big alpha rolls, you saw up to 500, but you will fluff shots and miss shots and have ghost shots, so just bear that in mind. But please take my advice and use the top gun. Remember, it's not my opinion, it is mathematics. It is proven Don't listen to people who just say you don't know what you're doing if you have to use the bigger gun. Get it, use it. That's what it's there for. The extra reload you have is well worth it because you will pen far more often than with the lower gun. Use supercharge and refined gun. Make your shots count. Remember what we always spoke about, actual versus theoretical DPM. If you make your shots count and if you use that bigger gun, the actual DPM will be far more than the theoretical DPM. Please watch the heavy tank guide on channel if you haven't already. There's a guide in that, for example, about side scraping, etc. if you don't know how to do it, if you're thinking about buying this tank. And despite my opinion, or let's say my disposition towards this tank of not liking it, it is an excellent heavy premium tank, great coefficient, good value for money. So if you are thinking about one, I would recommend it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Cheers, Mush. And I guess all that's left to say is pants off.